Arthur was once upon a time considered one of the most promising young talents in Europe. He was a player that fit Barcelona's playing style perfectly, but unfortunately a chain of events transpired that led to his career suffering a massive downfall in the span of just a couple of years. So, how did Arthur go from being considered as the next Xavi at Barcelona to becoming a bench warmer for Liverpool? Arthur began his career with his hometown club Goiás at the age of 12. In 2010, after being spotted in a youth tournament, he moved to Grêmio. Here he spent the majority of his youth career until finally, in January of 2015, following his impressive performances at the Copa São Paulo de Futebol Júnior, he was promoted from Grêmio's youth team under first-team manager Luis Felipe Scolari. Throughout 2015 and 2016, Arthur was simply getting used to top-flight football in Brazil, but come 2017, he became a first-team regular after a string of good performances. It was in this period of time where he started earning comparisons with Spanish midfielders such as Iniesta and Thiago, and in particular Barcelona legend Xavi. He also started to attract a lot of interest from European clubs such as Chelsea, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. Eventually, after multiple rumors, on March 11, 2018, Barcelona reached an agreement with Grêmio for the transfer of Arthur. The Spaniards agreed to pay an initial fee of 31 million euros, plus 9 million euros in bonuses, which was a lot of money for a player coming from outside of Europe. He signed a 6-year contract and was officially announced as a Barca player on the 9th of July 2018. His time at Barcelona started off well, with him scoring a goal in his debut in a preseason friendly against Tottenham Hotspur on the 28th of July. Throughout the season, he played a total of 2,481 minutes in 44 games, averaging 56 minutes per match, in which he assisted twice, failing to score in a professional game in his first season. Despite this, the comparisons with Xavi were only growing, and it seemed like he was definitely going to have a long future at the club. In his second season, Arthur really stepped up his game, at least stat-wise, where he managed to score 4 times and also assist 4 times, all this in only 28 games, where he averaged 55 minutes per game and 1 goal contribution every 192 minutes. Although it was much more of a positive season, he did have his struggles with injuries, something that really limited his playing time and perhaps didn't let him show his full potential. And even though it did seem like he had the love of the fans and also the players, perhaps in the eyes of the board, he wasn't totally untouchable. As we all know, the 1920 season was stopped around March due to the pandemic. This led to a lot of clubs losing a good chunk of their revenue and earnings, with one of those clubs being Barcelona. In fact, Barcelona in a financial report for the 2019-20 season showed a net loss of 97 million euros. This is a significant decrease from the previous year's net profit of 5 million euros. So, with such a big loss in finances suffered due to the pandemic, Barcelona were forced to sell. And although to the fans and even the players, such a talent like Arthur Melo was deemed untouchable, it seemed like the board didn't view it that way. So, on the 29th of June 2020, Barcelona announced that they had reached an agreement with Juventus for the transfer of Arthur for 72 million, with Pjanic also joining Barcelona from Juve for 60 million. This was basically a swap deal, only that Barcelona got an extra 10 million due to Arthur's value being slightly higher than Pjanic's. After the deal was announced, Arthur was totally frozen out of the Barcelona squad, being benched in every league match left. This led to Arthur refusing to return from Brazil after he had gone there for the break all clubs had before the Champions League campaign were recontinued. This was criticized but was also understood from the fan base due to how bad Barcelona had treated him up until then. Disappointing is the best way to describe his departure from Barca, because it seemed like he really had a long future at the club, with Arthur himself wanting to stay at the club. But what happened, and Arthur would have to prepare to become a Juventus player in a new adventure in Italy. Initially, when Juventus wanted to sign Arthur, they did so because their manager at the time, Maurizio Sarri, wanted him to be part of the team. But with Sarri being sacked on the 8th of August 2020, after Juventus were eliminated from the Champions League, and with Juventus signing working manager Andrea Pirlo to be their head coach, it wasn't too clear what his role would be for Juve. Arthur made his Juventus debut on September 27th against Roma, coming off the bench and playing quite well. He started his first match away to Crotone on October 17th, playing 70 minutes. He started playing a good amount of minutes and seemed to really have the trust of Pirlo. Due to the lack of a proper regista, Arthur and Bentancur were the ones playing that position for the most part, despite the fact that they both weren't exactly made for that position. He scored his first Juventus goal on January 24th, 2021 in a 2-0 win against Bologna. But even in the season, he had a few injuries, which seemed to be a big problem for Arthur. In February, he suffered an injury to his right leg, which initially didn't seem like a big deal, but later on it seemed more serious than it actually was perceived to be. Arthur, wanting to help Juventus finish out the season with good results, played at times even in pain, something which was quite obvious to everyone. But on April 2nd, Juventus manager Andrea Pirlo confirmed that Arthur, McKennie and Dybala would not play the upcoming match against Torino due to the fact that they had all attended a party at McKennie's home, something that at the time was definitely not allowed because it was breaching COVID-19 protocol. This was more disappointing than anything else due to the fact that Arthur was dealing through pain to play matches but couldn't simply respect COVID-19 protocol in order to not risk a suspension. Regardless, he finished the season with only one goal contribution, being that goal that I mentioned earlier, and with 32 games played where he only managed to play 1,715 minutes. It is safe to say it was yet another disappointing season for Arthur, where he really failed to exceed his expectations. But at the end of the day, it was an extremely disappointing season for the entire Juventus team, managing to only win the Supercoppa and Coppa Italiana, failing to defend their championship, and barely sneaking into the top 4, needing a Faraone goal against Napoli on the final day in order to reach the Champions League spots. This led to Pirlo being sacked and a familiar face rejoining the club, with that person being Massimiliano Allegri. Prior to the season beginning, Arthur underwent surgery on his right leg for the injury that he suffered back in February of 2021. This forced Arthur to miss 3 months of football. Although 3 months is indeed a lot, it seemed like the correct decision considering Juventus would have a fully recovered Arthur when he returned. He played his first match of the season on October 17th, 2021, coming off the bench to play 15 minutes in a 1-0 home win against Roma. He slowly started to get reintegrated into the squad, starting his first match in the end of October against Hellas Verona, with him dropping a disaster performance, making a massive error to give Verona the 1-0 lead. He would play very few minutes since that game, getting another start in December against Malmö at home. He started getting regular playing time again by the beginning of the new year, but once again he had a really bad season, and this time he didn't have an injury as an excuse. His performances left people wondering what was he actually good at. He couldn't give long balls, couldn't dribble anyone, couldn't score, couldn't defend. His highlights up until that point was him dribbling in circles and playing simple passes to the left or right. It seemed like he didn't do anything productive or anything really that any other player at the club couldn't do. His lack of productivity can be shown if we simply look at his stats for the season, with Arthur registering a whopping 1 assist and 1,534 minutes of playing time. He also had only 10 dribbles the entire season. For a midfielder, these are absolutely horrible stats, and by this point his market value had plummeted to 20 million euros from 70 million in his peak and 60 million when he first joined Juve. This was once again a season to forget for Arthur. On the final day of the summer transfer market, Arthur was sent to Liverpool on loan for 1 year with an option to buy for 37.5 million euros. He made his debut for Liverpool on September the 7th, playing 30 minutes in a 4-1 defeat to Napoli away from home. He played his second game for Liverpool in a 1-0 loss against Rochdale in the EFL Cup. That would be his last game for a while, because after being benched for matches against Ajax and Brighton, he then wasn't even in the squad for the next match against Rangers. It was confirmed by Jurgen Klopp that Arthur had sustained an injury in training earlier that week. Later, it was determined by Liverpool's medical staff that he needed surgery on the pulled quad muscle, which would sideline him at least until January. But after the surgery, he failed to register another performance for Liverpool's first team. In fact, the only 2 matches he played that season were for Liverpool's under-21s, both coming against Leicester's under-21s. The biggest impact he made at Liverpool was when a clip caught the attention of many fans, where Arthur was seen shaking Pep Guardiola's hand in a match against City right after Man City had tied the game, a clip which basically summarized Arthur's Liverpool career. He ended the season with 256 minutes, with his market value only plummeting even more and with his career in big jeopardy. He has returned from his sad loan at Liverpool, and Allegri has made it clear that Arthur isn't a part of his plans, which means that Juventus will be looking for a possible destination for the Brazilian. It is really disappointing seeing how a player dubbed as the next Xavi fell off this bad, to a point where it is going to be extremely hard for his career to recover. But what do y'all think? Can Arthur recover his career and reach the potential he had, or will this just be another case of a player wasting his potential and the chance of being great? Let me know in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more of this kind of content. I'll see you in the next one.